novel, and I plotted that novel according to the Save the Cat method. And I thought that I had taken enough creative liberties and I had made it mine in a way, but it just never felt like it. It never felt like mine. And I didn't get that because at that point, I was immersed in the writing world. I was active on the community online. I was working at Curtis Brown in New York at that point. I was reading more reference books than novels, probably. And I was writing every single day, like on the train to work, on the train back from work, my lunch break, whenever, wherever I could. I don't think I've ever written more in my life than I did at that time. But during that time, I just did not feel like a writer. I only really liked writing because I was completing tasks. I was building a habit. I was following this plot structure that had a very straightforward list of requirements to fulfill. And that made me feel productive. It made me feel successful. But I just did not feel that freedom that made me become a writer in the first place, because I was so caught up in the rules of writing and the logistics of completing these plotting beat sheets, following all of this advice from all these different people at once, and trying to basically expose myself to as much information as possible in an effort to become a better writer. And it kind of took some weird life twists and turns to shift my mindset there. But eventually I realized there are no rules. You don't have to know 9 different kinds of plot structures and every element of the hero's journey, like down to a T, in order to write your book. I mean, like James Joyce, Virginia Woolf, Nabokov, Steinbeck, all of these writers that I have loved and revered my entire life, they didn't have the same methods that we use today. They didn't have access to as much instant information as we do. They just had exactly what we all had when we first felt that feeling of freedom in the beginning days of our writing. And that's stories to tell, a unique perspective, and the passion to share both of those things. So the tagline for this course was how to plot your novel. And essentially the course is about steering away from industry standard, or even like community standard. I think we would consider it community standard plotting templates. So things like Save the Cat and the Snowflake Method, and just steering away from that and tuning into your own storytelling instincts. So listening to your story, letting it take its own shape, rather than try to squish it into a mold that someone else came up with. It's about it's kind of about breaking free of what one of my clients recently dubbed rule following syndrome, which I love. I think we all have that to some extent. And it's not so much, this course is not so much a criticism of those industry standards as it is just an encouragement to realize your own capabilities as a writer, and to realize that you are the only one who knows how to write your book. And the sooner you feel confident in having that responsibility, the more freeing the writing process becomes. Sorry, I got to take a little.
I think you just hit it on the head too, that until the writer has confidence, that she won't truly like fall into that freedom. And I think just to like honor the desire from where this like curiosity for templates and Save the Cat and following these rules, like it comes from a really good place. It comes from a very natural place of wanting to belong in the writing community. Okay, like you want to know what everyone else is talking about when they say Dark Night of the Soul, or they keep referencing the Save the Cat moment, and you're like, what does a cat have to do with writing? Like there's a very real desire to belong. So belonging to the writing community, that's where that might come from. Okay, another thing that is I think where these structured ideas come from is it helps us feel safe in an endeavor that often feels very like you don't have your feet on the ground, or it's like, where am I going? Somebody please tell me what to do. I have these ideas, but I don't know what to do with them. And that is very uncomfortable and can trick our brains into making us feel unsafe, when really like it's not that high stakes, right? Like you can't pretend wrong. You can't imagine wrong. It's just that we feel like if we make the wrong imaginative choice, that something bad will happen. Like that's our own like adult jadedness that is robbing us of this creative joy that we felt in childhood, that I love that you referenced. I hadn't really thought of it that way before, but the structure provides a sense of safety. However, Alyse is saying when you lean into that confidence, not that you're doing everything right, but walking with faith that it will be all right. Like there's a very key difference. Not that you know for sure that you're doing it right, but that you believe it will be all right if you just keep going. If you trust, right, with trust, with faith, that future you will figure this out just like present you is figuring it out right now. And to be able to tolerate that the work in progress is a work in progress is like the key here. That you don't have to keep going to this other structure to tell you like, yes, you're doing a good job, keep going, keep going, this is exactly right, you're doing a good job. That's our brains wanting that reassurance that we're not wasting our time, because we often have that thought, am I wasting my time? And writing inherently is such a high art that is something that was often only enjoyed by like the aristocracy and like those who were living a life of leisure, that you don't feel like it's contributing to society. You might feel like it's a waste of time. So why do it? For the same reason we did as children, because it was a fun way to pass our time and it was a fun way to live our lives. And it was something that we instinctually went towards because that's what we enjoyed as children. And that child didn't go away all of a sudden. And I love that Alyse is bringing that up into like our lexicon, is honoring that inner child with this freedom that we get to enjoy.
Yeah, and I like the phrase like wasting your time, because I just embrace that. As a writer, you're going to waste your time. There's so much experimentation, just in general creativity, in being a creative person. And if you don't embrace that and you rely on methods like, yeah, we rely on a lot of different plotting methods and things in general that just provide us with instant gratification and this like validation that we are doing the right thing, and it feels right because there's a tangible rule that you're following, and you get that instant feeling like, all right, I haven't wasted my time. There is so much beauty in wasting your time, so much beauty. It's never wasted time, first of all. But one of the reasons I really love this method, and you can just like see my sticky note wall up there, is that it's so flexible, and you don't waste your time because you can just rearrange things. You just experiment. You like let yourself explore all of these different, I love that quote, Lillian. I'm having that on a t-shirt. You can just explore all of these different options. And that's how you discover like real gems in your writing, just by letting yourself be comfortable with making mistakes. So I like that you brought up that whole idea of wasting your time.
But wait, be comfortable with making mistakes. What? But what about the perfectionist in a lot of us?
Yeah.
Like, speak to that for a second, please.
Well, I myself am definitely a perfectionist. I have never not been a perfectionist, and it's something that I thought was like a toxic trait for a long time because I was terrified of wasting my time. I was terrified of making mistakes. And then it's just the simplest thing. Most bits of advice that I give are the simplest pieces of advice. You learn from your mistakes. You learn so much from your mistakes. If I had not plotted my second novel strictly according to Save the Cat, which was wrong for that story, if I had not made the mistake and like wasted my time there, I would not be here. I would not be writing my third novel. I wouldn't have come out with this course. You just have to keep thinking, this might be a mistake. Yeah. But what is it teaching me? Yeah, that's what I'm always keeping in my mind. Like,
I would
again,
agree with that. The what is this teaching me is one of the coolest, interestingly most liberating questions I've ever thought to ask myself over and over and over again. And it takes you out of that like emotional, like, you idiot, I can't believe you just, and it takes you into your cognitive brain where it's like, let's think about this, right? Where it's like, sure, there's room for feeling, but also if you find yourself throwing a pity party, like it's time to stop that and move on to a different train of thinking that might be more helpful. Something that I have also fallen into, I was not expecting you to say that you are like on a on an ongoing relationship with your perfectionism. So I appreciate you sharing that, because I feel like it was just, this has been a common theme in the Hedgie House Prickles lately, that there is healthy perfectionism. There is like, you, I'm sure, made sure that your sticky note course was as close to perfect as possible because this means a lot to you. And that, Erin, oh shoot, who was this person? Was it Becca? It was Becca's son. Yeah, the burnout prickle, where she said, the unhealthy perfectionism is when you're doing it because you're afraid of letting someone else down or letting yourself down, or just like you have these expectations put on you that you just like wouldn't be able to stand. Like if you make a mistake, you will not be accepted anymore. And that would be really high stakes for a writer who just wants her readers to enjoy her book, just like she's enjoyed so many other books. Whereas if I make a mistake in my novel, I'm afraid that you will never read another book of mine again. And that terrifies me. because I want so badly to write books and I want you to enjoy them. I feel like that was just a real truth that a lot of us might share. So I'm going to give that a second. And that's the unhealthy perfectionism. The healthy perfectionism says, I will work on this product for as long as I need to make it a good story. So it's like the same desire, but phrased differently. And it doesn't have the fear that if you do not get it perfectly right the first time, that you do not belong in the writing community. It's just that we want to work, we want to get stronger. Like the first draft not being perfect doesn't mean that the final draft will not be. And we often fall into that trap where we want the first draft to be the most perfect that it can possibly be, so that you don't have to edit it 10 million times, so that you don't have to spend all this money on editing fees. Sorry, Alyse. And like all of these things that you want to do to make the first draft absolutely like golden and shimmery. And and it's okay to make a mistake, because we could fix it, because we could have the confidence that we'll find the resources to fix it and to strengthen it. Ooh, this is good stuff.
This is good stuff.